You're breaking his heart, Matt. You can't bring that up again. It's a sore subject.
Welcome, everyone, to the first episode ever of the Fishing Loons podcast, brought to you by Average Ontario Anglers. Today, we have a super awesome episode, as always, but this is the first episode of 2026. Thanks for making it to another season. We're on season 4 now, which, Andrew, again, we have to say this every year. Did you ever think we would get this far?
I don't think so. I'm an old man now. I started when seemed like a wee baby.
Andrew did look quite different when we started. He didn't have a beard and he looked like a child.
I was also about 40 pounds lighter.
A few things about the new name. We just feel that this name actually gives us a little bit of a better vibe for what we feel is a better fit for the podcast name. Mainly because me and Andrew are a little bit unhinged. In not a terrible way, but in a fishing way. And we feel that the new name is a little more relatable for people that listen to the podcast, not just in Ontario, but all over Canada, the United States, and as we always mention, a lot of places all around the world. Me and Andrew are a little bit, loony and make weird noises on the lake just like a loon. So that's the way we're going to do it now. So we appreciate you guys following along to the newest season. So this episode, we actually have a guest, which we like to have because it means me and Andrew don't have to talk as much, right? Andrew's just silent.
That was the plan.
So we actually have on this episode, we have from Smooth River Guiding, we have again, Matt Martin. How's it going, Matt?
Hey guys. Yeah, I'm honored to be here for the first edition. This is amazing. Thanks for having me. I'm doing well and just wrapping up a busy season here and looking forward to what's to come.
Absolutely. We thought, who is the looniest guy we know for the first episode? And of course, Matt's name came up.
Oh, that's an honor. I'll take it.
Dave Mercer was busy today.
Yeah.
He's kind of loony, yeah.
I tried. But this episode, we're actually going to talk about a subject that almost everyone asks us for every single winter. Most of us, by this time of the year, like there's ice on top of the lake. Again, it's January now. Now everyone is focused on ice fishing. So we thought we would have on a guide that can tell us a little bit about ice fishing, a little bit of some tricks and tips to help us do a little bit better. Me and Andrew, we like ice fishing, but we suck at it, right, Andrew?
Absolutely.
So that's why we have Matt here today.
Yeah. The best ice fishing I ever did was out of my Cavalier.
Do not recommend. Anyway, before we get into Andrew's insanity, we're going to have our usual interesting fishing fact. And to handle that, we have the man with the beard. Well, I guess they both have beards, but the man with the beard named Andrew.
Right now, I've winterized my boat. It's been put away in storage. I know me and Matt were just talking. He has his boat winterized now. We try and get as much use out of him out of the season, but I started thinking, what are some kind of like oddities in the marine world, in the boating world of inventions and stuff like that? Like there's so much care that you have to put into the average boat, and you look at them, they're pretty much all the same. Maybe it's an inboard, maybe it's an outboard, maybe it's a jet, maybe it's a prop, but that's about it, right? And then you have canoes like paddlecraft. But there's not much variety. So I wanted to look into some really odd boats. And I found a number of them that have some like really odd designs. The first one that kind of got me started on it is actually, it's the story about Knapp's roller boat. So this takes place right here in Ontario. In the late 19th century, there's lots of engineering experimentation. There's an inventor named Frederick Augustus Knapp of Prescott, Ontario. And he designed and built one of the oddest marine vessels I've ever heard of. So the concept behind it, he believed that most boats wasted enormous amounts of energy pushing water out of the way. His solution was radical. Instead of a hull passing through water, the entire boat would act as a giant rotating cylinder rolling over the water, like a massive floating wheel. So not a riverboat, just the piece on the back. This, he theorized, would reduce drag and drastically increase speed. Between 1897 and 1898, a 110-foot-long prototype was constructed in Toronto. Now, in theory, this is what he wanted it to work, or this is how it did work. The roller boat was basically a steel cylinder shaped like a horizontal water tank. Inside the cylinder was a stationary cabin where engines and the crew would be located. Around the cabin is the outer hull. It was supposed to spin using an internal steam engine, and as the shell rotated, it would roll across the water surface, pushing the boat forward. Knapp had estimated speeds of 30 to 60 miles per hour, which was unheard of for that time. Now, we all know reality can set in pretty hard and fast. So what actually happened? The boat floated, but it was highly unstable. It was difficult to steer, and the power to mass ratio was not sufficient to spin the hull effectively. The cylinder tended to plow into the water rather than roll across it. While it moved, it never reached anywhere near the theoretical speeds. And, of course, investors lost interest. This boat, though, sat unused in the Toronto harbor for years. Eventually, it was condemned as scrap. It just sat there and rotted, just moored up in the harbor. In 1915, the remains of the roller boat were sold to Louis Scicluna of St. Catharines, where he dismantled it, and the parts were reused as some barge components. However, in 2012, during construction work in Toronto, some rusting remnants of the steel shell were found in Toronto. So it's definitely a failed operation, but a valiant effort was made. That was the one that kind of sparked me looking into some other boats and stuff like that. So one more I was going to mention. Now there's a number, and I'll probably have a few more featured perhaps in the future. But this one here was the sail-powered monorail boat. I had to double read that when I first...
Monorail.
Yeah. So you think monorail, you think what? Trains. Like Disneyland. I don't know. It's a monorail. So in the 19th century again, investors were wanting efficient movement. That's what their biggest goal was. And one idea was a sail-powered monorail boat. It's a hybrid of a sailboat and a train. So the inspiration was sailboats were obviously, they're elegant. We look at them now, we're still fascinated by them. But they needed room to tack, which is when they go side to side to be able to reach the location, because wind is not always facing one direction. They're also very deep. They have that really long fin on the bottom, and it dragged heavily through the water. So one inventor thought, what if the boat could ride on a fixed track beneath the water on a suspended railway? It would never drift off course, it would never roll over, and the sail could be optimized for single direction travel. Good ideas in theory. They tried it. They built on. So how it worked was, along a canal riverbed, a single iron rail was installed a few feet underwater. Attached to the rail was a carriage with wheels, and above the surface, it held a narrow, lightweight hull, a tall, efficient sail, and a rigid mast and frame. So some of the benefits was the hull didn't need to provide stability because it was attached at the bottom to a fixed point. So it wouldn't roll over. You didn't have to worry too much about like having a keel and stuff like that. The vessel could then be exceptionally slim, which means it would be very streamlined because, again, it doesn't have to worry about rolling over. So in theory, it would be faster and more controllable than any other sailboat at the time. Now, what did happen? I'm sure that we're all excited to see the progression to seeing all these monorail sailboats we see these days, but the issues were a single track means one route. So if you want to go somewhere else, you can't. The underwater rail was very expensive to build and to install and maintain, very prone to rusting, i.e. iron. Maintenance was constant on it, and sailboats without the freedom to tack were helpless whenever winds didn't suit with the rail's direction. So again, winds are always changing. However, there were a few prototypes tested in parts of Europe and America. Then they said they actually moved quite well when everything was perfect. But obviously, conditions are... Well, let's ask you, when is the last time you had perfect conditions on the water?
Never.
Yeah. Never.
So it obviously didn't last. We don't see them sticking around. Steam engines, early gasoline boats arrived. They were more suitable for progressing, moving around on water, even when winds weren't suited for a sail. And of course, it kind of just faded off into the background and nobody talks about it. But that's another kind of marine technology that was brought to the point of being invented, being built, being tested, and used, and just now disappeared because it was inferior or maybe too difficult. But I was looking, there's a bunch of these. Some I was surprised at ideas were used, not from these examples here, but from other examples. There are some things that changed water travel, this kind of first inventions of it. But maybe another time we'll get into some of those. But those are the kind of the two. I'd love to see them in use, but I just know how impractical they are. But I would love to be like, there's one, it's down at the Toronto Harbor still.
They just sound like fever dreams, like someone having a very bad fever. And then they wrote down an idea when they woke up in the middle of the night. And then the next day they looked at it and they're like, hear me out. It's a train that's in the lake. And they just happen to have too much money. They're like, let's do it.
I like how the prototype this guy built for the roller boat is 110 feet long. Like, it's not, let's start this small. It's like, let's make a cruise liner that rolls itself constantly.
Leave it to Andrew to tell you something absolutely insane on this fishing podcast.
That's and useless and will not benefit you.
Hey, who knows? There might be some crazy trivia down the road at some bar. That could help me out. Roller boat. I'm going to remember roller boat for sure. Toronto. Famous invention from Toronto.
Thanks, Andrew, for that. As usual, Andrew always has an interesting fishing fact that is slightly loony or off the rails, which is 100% what we want. So again, today's episode is featuring Matt Martin. And you may have recognized the name Matt Martin because we've had him on the podcast. This is his third episode. We've actually had the first episode we did was all about steelhead fishing. And the second one we did, remember, it was all about multi-species. We talked about gar, carp, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I'm going to link both those down in the description because both of those are actually awesome episodes. And actually, I was going to tell you, Matt, the multi-species episode that we did, it's actually our fourth most downloaded episode of all time.
Whoa, that's crazy.
Yeah. It was a great episode. I loved it. So I know you guys, if you're just tuning in this year or just in the last few months, go back and listen to those episodes from last year. They were pretty awesome. I enjoyed them. So this episode here, we're talking about ice fishing like we mentioned. And we're going to talk a little bit about everything, a little bit about ice safety gear, ice fishing for beginners, walking out without using machines, because most of us don't own machines, and also a lot of tips to keep you catching fish and also safe. But before we get into that, why don't we just have a little introduction here with Matt? If someone hasn't listened to those episodes before, tell us a little bit about yourself, Matt, where you fish, where you guide, and how you started getting into fishing yourself.
Sure. Yeah. Goes without saying, my name is Matt Martin. I operate a company called Smooth River Guiding. I'm based in Midland, Ontario, so right up on Georgian Bay, but I guide from how far north, like central Georgian Bay, south of the French River, all the way down to Toronto. You can find me in the spring on the Credit River, for instance, chasing steelhead with my guests. So I'm all over the place. Definitely a multi-species angler. I am happy to say, we don't have the best of, trout fishing in Ontario anywhere in the world, or the best steelheading in the world. We don't have, the best pike fishing in Southern Ontario, but we have everything within a 40-minute drive, which is crazy. So last count, I think it was 15 species that I regularly guide for, from panfish to walleye to salmon, steelhead, muskie, everything in between. And definitely multi-technique angler as well. Always have fly rods on my boat, which might seem a little bit interesting to people. They're not sure about that fly fishing for, fast pike, whatever, but it's super effective in pressured situations. But I guide equally as many conventional anglers throughout the season. Ice fishing is a huge passion of mine. I've been ice fishing. I grew up in Barrie, so I grew up on the shores of Lake Simcoe. In fact, I used to walk towing my jet sled from my parents' house to the lake, which was about an hour and 20-minute walk down the road when I was 14 years old, absolutely destroying the sled on the sidewalk, but made it all the way out to famous Manette's Point. And I would slay perch and whitefish and just had a great time growing up there. So it's always been part of me. In the last 2 years, I've really jumped into guiding on the ice. We had a great ice season last year, lots of days on the water, early ice, and this year is kind of shaping up to be the same. We've had really cold weather. We started getting snow up here in Midland in late November, and lakes and ponds were skimming over since then. So, yeah, it's just a passion of mine. I guess I'm basically a fish in human form. I love it. People always say, do you not get tired of it? And I'm on the water close to 200 days a year, if not more. And you know what? Maybe towards the end of a season, but there's always a new season that I'm looking forward to, which is the best part. So, yeah, that's my elevator speech anyways. That's who I am.
There's no off season for Matt Martin. He's out there every single month.
No, it's not. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I got to stop calling you Matt Martin. It's just one of those names that it just flows so good that I have to say Matt.
Good. I'm good.
Andrew, his last name? Meh. I just call him Andrew.
Well, you can call me Matt Martin. That's a pretty common name, so that's all good. I've been called Matt M my entire life because there's always been so many Matts in my classes and at work and stuff like that. So all good. Just don't call me Matthew, please.
We'll start calling you Eminem.
Yeah, Eminem.
Well, Andrew, you do that. See how it works out for you. Anyway, one question to start this off when we're talking about ice fishing. I know you kind of talked about like how much you love it, but for most people, what would you say makes ice fishing in Ontario so unique compared to other places?
I mean, we briefly touched on how many species there are to chase. That's a huge thing. But Ontario, I think one of our best, it's not really a secret, but one of the best aspects to fishing or ice fishing in Ontario is the variety of water we have. You can jump in your car or truck and drive 30 minutes and have access to tiny little ponds that are full of crappie and bluegill and hit bigger water for pike and lake trout. We have the famous Lake Simcoe that is probably one of the most fished lakes in the world on the ice. I can't remember the number of anglers every year, unique visits it gets, but it's in the hundreds of thousands of unique visits from anglers all over North America to fish for perch, whitefish, lake trout, burbot. It's pretty incredible. But yeah, I mean, and it's also, there's so much water once you get north of Lake Simcoe that it doesn't feel pressured. I'm about 30, where I guide lake trout, for instance, is 30 minutes north of Lake Simcoe. And I rarely see anyone. And the lake trout fishing is fantastic. We're 20, 30 hookups a day, and it's pretty unreal. And you can do a day trip from Toronto. It's an hour and 40 minutes. It's not crazy. Yeah, and it's walkout. A lot of this stuff's walkout, which is super cool. You don't need to have a sled. Although having a sled makes life a lot easier, but I've never had one until this year. My whole life growing up, I never owned a sled for ice fishing, and I would easily walk a kilometer plus to get up to the spot. So yeah, it's pretty sweet.
1 kilometer, that's rookie numbers.
Exactly, right? It's nothing.
If you fish Lake Simcoe in recent years, you walk that just to get to the lakeside, let alone
well, that's a good point. Parking. I should mention when I guide on Georgian Bay, parking is, maybe I shouldn't mention that it's not an issue. I want to keep it kind of quiet. But it's not as much of an issue. We park right up, there's parking lots, like boat launches and stuff that don't get pressured, so there's no reason to restrict them to residents only.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Ooh, residents only.
It's true though. Like me and Andrew have been ice fishing for, I'd say, decades at this point. And we started ice fishing right out on Lake Simcoe, like a lot of people. And over the years, had some absolutely fantastic days out there. But we're trying to branch out a bit, which is why we're trying to, get some tips from Matt, because ice fishing is not our strong suit for sure. It's something that we want to improve on. But we also we hate being cold. So we just got an ice hut 2 years ago, a nice thermal. And we're excited to get out on the lake. Well, hopefully at the end of this month in January, there'll be some safe ice. But speaking of safe ice, I thought we could talk, before we talk about any fishing, we talk about ice safety, because that's a huge deal. A lot of people listening to this podcast, maybe they've never gone ice fishing before. And it's something that they're like, you know what, that looks amazing. Or maybe they are scared to do it because it does sound sketchy. How many times have you told someone, you're like, oh, I'm going ice fishing, and they're like, is it safe? You're like, yeah, the ice is 2 feet thick. It's not safe at all. But let's talk a little bit about ice safety. I know it's going to depend. There's some crazy people out there. There's some people that are overly, conservative with what, thickness of ice they like to go on as well. But what's kind of your ice thickness safety gauge yourself?
Depends on if I'm on my own or if I'm taking clients out. That's a big thing, right? If I'm signing myself up for the risk and with friends that know the risk, 4 inches is kind of what I will advertise I go out on. Have I been out on thinner? Yeah, I mean, by mistake, you're out on 4 inches, and then all of a sudden one step off the trail you've been following, you hit your spud bar and it's 2 inches thick, right? And you're still standing on it. So, but for guiding, even with walkouts, I try not to be on it unless it's 6 inches, because that'll take care of some of the variance in the ice, because you might find some thinner spots. Yeah, so most of my walkout trips begin when they're 6 inches, and I'm not feeling comfortable with people on it until, especially people that are new to the sport, until we're 8+ inches, where I'm feeling a little bit more safe out there. I might be a little bit overcautious with people, but I don't want the insurance claim, and I'd rather be not known as the guy who lost people. It's worked out so far. So, but yeah, they always the rule of thumb is always 4 inches for walking. Use your best judgment. Have the safety gear. Go with a buddy. Leave a note on your windshield. Tell someone where you're going. All that kind of stuff. But yeah, usually when we're out, if we're out on 4 inches, as I'm out scouting early in the year with friends, we're not walking close together. We're spread out. Each of us has a throw bag. Each of us is wearing a float suit, usually towing a sled, like a small lightweight sled that has, some stuff behind, so we have something to hold on to if we do go through. There's something to pull back on a rope, and ice picks for sure. And I don't just have them like tucked inside my suit. They're usually like ready to go, like in my hands if I'm out on 4 inches. Because like I said, like 4 inches is great, but we've all been there where you're walking with a spud bar and all of a sudden one punch you swing and you go right through with one hit, and that's a good puckering, you can call it, when you see that. Yeah, very ice. It's something that you can only learn by doing. Take the best advice at 4 inches and drill lots of holes and make sure you're good. But don't mess around because it's just not worth it. Like a couple fish,
exactly,
ain't worth it.
They always say that no fish is worth your life.
Yeah, and I'll tell you something that really grinds my gears is when I'm out there on like 4 inches of ice. All right, I'm out there with friends or whatever, early season scouting, and somebody out for a pleasure ride on a snowmobile pulls right up beside my hut and asks me, "Hey, how thick's the ice?" Like, do you not think to check that before you get on the ice? Like, you've got the 1,000-pound sled sitting beside me. Can you please move? I always tell them I'm on like 2 or 3 inches just to watch them kind of freak a bit, but like, just stay away. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been on the ice and felt like a guy in a truck come along, and you kind of feel that wave that pushes in front of the truck. And
yeah.
What are you doing out here?
Yeah.
Oh. Well, we've all seen the classics around Guildford and stuff where people treat it like a parking lot on the ice, and all of a sudden it doesn't. The parking lot sinks. So yeah, try to stay away from people a little bit. And it also helps us with our bite in shallow water.
Exactly.
I hate it when someone rips right up on top of me.
And I think that's a good tip too, because just because you see someone out there does not mean that it's safe.
Absolutely. Right? I know guys that are like, very good anglers, and they kind of pride themselves on, they'll know who I'm talking, or if they listen to this, they know who I'm talking about, that pride themselves on being first ones out there and will regularly go out on unsafe ice. They have the gear and stuff and the knowledge to navigate it, but like I've seen videos of them out there where there's waves, like from the lake, open water nearby, and the ice is rolling as they're on it. So yeah, don't go out because someone else went out.
Yeah. No, I'm good. So speaking, I know you mentioned having a spud bar, and for maybe many people that fish in the middle of the winter when the ice is thick, this may not be something that they even bother carrying because the ice could be, 20, 25 inches thick, right? Course. But we're talking right now about early ice. Do you have any tips on actually using a spud bar correctly? Because I know a lot of people have spud bars. For sure. And I see every year people not using them correctly.
Oh, absolutely. A heavy walking stick.
Exactly. Yeah, just tapping the ice as you go and chiseling out like half an inch is not gonna do what you need to do. So the biggest tip I have is almost all of them come with a rope or a lanyard on your wrist. Please use it, or you're just gonna donate it to the lake. Those one swing attempts, I have seen it where they just slip out of your hand and down goes your $70 to $100 spud bar, right? So yeah, it's got a rope on there for a reason. Make sure you have that. And then what I try to do is I want to have a pretty powerful punch. When I'm hitting, I'm trying to take about 2 to 3 inches per swing of the ice. So often that when I'm walking, I'll take like, 10, 15 steps and swing again. Depending on ice, it might be closer. It might be every step or every other step. But I'll often bring that spud bar up above my head, like the arm up, and just force it down. Like it's like a good thump. And if I can do 2 and it doesn't go through, I feel pretty good about the ice. That should be roughly 4 inches, plus or minus. But always, especially early ice, got a nice, electric auger that's good for like 800 inches of ice or something. Every 50, 60 steps after spudding, I'll still do test holes just to get a visual on that ice. And not only the thickness of the ice, but the quality of the ice. Mm-hmm. So, you don't want to be spudding. It's all good, but you're just punching white ice, and it's just kind of crap. There's a strength difference between black ice and white ice for sure. So black ice is that super clear ice that you might see in an ice cube in your drink. White ice is like slushy. Mm-hmm. It's not good.
White ice may sound good, but it's actually bad.
Yeah, it's bad for walking, bad for us. Yeah.
So that's good because like that's one thing that me and Andrew have always with us, even when we don't need it, but we always have it just in case. You mentioned ice picks as well. That's a big thing for me and Andrew as well. And like you mentioned, always have them ready.
Yeah, they make the ones that like clip together around your neck, and I see guys walking around with them like right up on their chin. And I'm like, in panic mode, you're not going to be just like trying to pull those apart. And if you've ever tried to pull some of them apart, like they're actually kind of rigid. Mm-hmm. Like they're not easy to pop. So pull them off. They're on a lanyard for a reason. Like walk around there with them in your hands. It might be a little challenging while you're carrying a spud bar, like have one hanging, one in your hand, something like that. But yeah, have them easily accessible. I've had to use them once in my life. Thought I had them. It was pretty straightforward with a float suit and everything. Got it relatively easy, but it wasn't a fun experience. Yeah.
Worth the money, worth the $12.
Absolutely.
Oftentimes those ones that like clip together, the ones I have, I talked about it before, I found them on the ice while ice fishing. I'm like, well, someone lost these.
Did you see a man-sized hole like right next to it? Like,
not his problem.
Cartoonishly, like
floating tube in the water. Yeah.
So, but the lanyard is so long, you can run them through like idiot mittens. Have the string going through your sleeves, right?
Yeah.
And then you have the picks right there at your hands, hanging at the end of your sleeve even. So you still have a hand free to spud. And that it's right there. If you do need it, it's right there to be able to grab and handle. That's another thing. It'll help keep it there because if it's just around your neck too in this big wide loop, that could easily fall off if you drop too. So
absolutely. I do encourage people to, like, in safe controlled scenarios to, like, at the end of the season when there's like shoreline ice that's breaking up and there's water, like, go see how hard it is to pull yourself out of the water. Like, it's not easy. I've definitely done that just to get experience, to know what it's like. Because when you fall into that cold water and you take that sudden gasp, it's not the first thing you think of. Most people go into panic mode. Like, it's not like, okay, I got to find where my picks are. Like, it's have them close to hand, because if you don't have them close to hand, you're not going to use them. You're not going to find them.
Speaking of float suits, maybe, Andrew, explain the difference between a float suit and a regular winter suit.
So, have you ever tried to go swimming fully clothed and live to tell about it? So, regulars like snowsuits, stuff like that, they will fill up with water. And again, it won't necessarily make you sink in the water, but it's way more added resistance. And as soon as you try to start pulling yourself onto the ice, you're lifting an extra 100 pounds of water weight that's trapped in your jacket, in your snow pants, and your clothes. You're just setting yourself up for failure. But with float suits, they have flotation foam, similar to like a foam life jacket, but it's actually sewn directly into certain areas of the pants, of the jackets, so that will offset and will actually help support you in the water, making it less weight you're dragging out of that hole back onto the ice. That's their prime thing. They're not waterproof. They're not going to make you, come out and be like, oh, I'm fine, time to continue fishing the rest of the day. Like, you fell in the water. It's a dangerous situation still, but it makes getting out onto the ice way easier. So it will help. It's a huge factor to helping save your life in the worst case scenario.
And again, it's a float suit. It helps keep you floating. And I know we're not going to go in depth about Jesse's rant about wearing inflatable life jackets, because we covered that in a previous episode, but we did a lot of research. We looked up some stuff on the Mustang official website. You cannot use an inflatable life jacket in cold temperatures. It will not properly inflate. A lot of people say, I'm not going to buy a float suit. They're too expensive. I'm just going to wear a small, thin, inflatable life jacket over top of my suit. It is highly not recommended by all the manufacturers that make inflatables. If you have to do that, wear a legitimate foam life jacket over top. It may look big and bulky, but it might save your life. Anyway, yeah, so that's pretty much the safety part of it. That's like, everyone's like, that's the boring part, let's talk about the fishing. But it is important because you could put yourself in a very dangerous situation while you're ice fishing, because ice fishing is not the same. Like Matt said, you could walk 100 feet in this direction. The ice could be different than where you are now. The ice could change throughout the day. There could be a pressure crack.
Something I see early ice all the time is, maybe we don't have snow coverage on the ice, or there's patchy snow coverage. When you're walking out on glare ice and you're seeing 4 or 5 inches, that's great. But spud in a little bit of snow and see how much that snow insulated the ice, and it will be like an inch. Like, it's incredible how a little bit of snow can make all the difference. Just because there's snow on it now, or there's no snow on it now, doesn't mean there wasn't earlier, because it blows around, right? Something that's interesting to see, like, go out there and see for yourself that 5, 6 inches of ice, clear, beautiful ice, and then there's like 2 inches on that snow-covered stuff. So I see that all the time on Lake Simcoe. And factor in wind too in early ice. Like, if you're fishing where I'm on Georgian Bay, if I get a strong, wind, and I know that the main lake isn't frozen and the wind is blowing, let's say, from the south and the open waters to the north, like, might not be a good idea to go out on the ice that day. They can separate from the shore and see you later. The whole ice flow breaks off. And that happens every year too on Lake Simcoe. Yeah. Like, it's I laugh, but it's true. Like, You got to be so cautious early ice. And I'm not saying this to, well, I am saying this to scare you a little bit because like I don't want to be responsible for like, oh, so Matt told me to go out on 4 inches ice. No, but like you know, talk to local hut operators, local guides, see what their opinion is on the ice, and if there's any areas they should avoid. Most guides I know, if you reach out to them and say, hey, where's somewhere I shouldn't go in this area, Georgian Bay, for instance, I will happily tell you where not to go. I might not tell you where to go unless you book a day, but but where not to go because I don't want to see someone. In worst case, I don't want to be involved in a rescue. You know, if I'm out there and someone goes through a pinch point where there's current, like, and I'm the closest person, like, that doesn't sound like fun. So use your brain.
Yeah. I was going to say, if you just constantly ask Matt where not to go, eventually you can narrow down where to go. Just have all these fake burner accounts, everyone asking questions. Anyway. So why don't we go into the next segment there, Andrew?
Yeah. So we're going to talk more about the fun stuff to actually get fish on ice.
Hey, why do you get to talk about the fun stuff?
Because you get a chance after me too.
Oh, nice.
So for rods and reels, so we're going to go, like, we have a few different species we're going to be talking about, but I know for us, like, we'll start off with going small, let's say perch or crappie and stuff. What would be a rod and reel setup you'd recommend for going for some panfish?
Well, it really depends on the type of panfish, the size of the panfish, and the baits that you're working. So I'm going to talk specifically mostly about like perch and crappie. That's where most of my experience is. When I'm crappie fishing, you often catch bluegill too, so like it's kind of one and the same. I usually carry 2 rods. I'm a big fan of longer rods now in general, even all the way down to my ultralights. Like this one was 30-inch ultralight. Like that tip is like, it's nothing. This is like my classic dead stick rod, something that I can set, because usually, I should say, in Ontario, we can run 2 lines per angler with a caveat of certain areas. There's plenty of areas where it's 1 line, so make sure you look that up. And in areas I guide as well, there's only 1 rod. But for my perch trips on southern Georgian Bay, Lake Simcoe and area, yeah, an ultralight is a lot of fun. Something in that like 2 to 4 pound test range. It makes, you know, those 8-inch fish or less kind of fun still. You know, that rod will bend right over. You know, it's big when it starts wobbling back and forth when you're bringing it in. It's no longer just bending straight down. Everyone's probably felt that left and right wobble of the rod. But yeah, 30-inch, kind of 27, 30-inch, ultra light. This is going to be sitting on a rod holder or a bucket beside me with some sort of drop shot rig, usually just a 1/4 ounce drop shot sinker, or, you know, whatever it is. You have a bell sinker, works just fine. With 2 hooks, usually a high and a low hook with a shiner, or what I'll often use is like a shiner and a soft plastic. So when that shiner gets picked clean and you missed it, there's still something else that they have to kind of pick at to try to get off. So yeah, that's kind of where I go with panfish, at least for my 1 rod. My second rod, I always love, like, again, a 32-inch, this one. Yeah, 32-inch medium light, very, very soft in the tip still, but I can work like, you know, decent sized jigs with it. So I like to use buckshot jigs a lot of the time, like these guys here. They're a great rattle, little tiny jig. It's actually not that small, this one, you could catch walleye on it, but I like an active presentation beside my dead stick. And, you know, I'm sure I'm literally repeating what everyone else on YouTube has said about, you know, active versus dead stick. Like, you need active. It's true though. You need that active and dead stick approach. Call the fish in and have something that's there for those neutral fish. Keeping in mind that we are able to move a lot ice fishing, but it requires effort. So on a day when it's cold and blowing and like taking your shack down and moving at 50 feet, it can be quite challenging. So having something you can call the fish over to you is key. A lot of the time what I'll use is a buckshot spoon or any other spoon, a little Williams, or a slab grabber is a great option as well. Lake Simcoe staple with a high hook, and I'll run, you know, little soft plastics on that high hook, which is just tied on like a drop shot, a foot above, 2 feet above, and you can work that bait really, really aggressively, call the school in, and then just dead stick it for a second and watch those bigger finicky fish come over and eat the soft plastic. So those would be my 2 kind of rods. If I had to buy 2 rods, one would be like a medium light or a light, and then like an ultra light, because it's nice to have that something with that soft tip where you can watch it just dance as a fish touches it. I used to use a lot of spring bobbers on my rod tips to help with strike identification, but if you're hole hopping, like, spring bobbers can be a little bit frustrating because they freeze up really easily. And if you're in a heated shack, no problem, but with panfish, you got to move. It's probably the main fish where I'm just running around.
Run and gun.
Yeah, run and gun. I usually will start my location, like I'll hit a waypoint that I like, and I might start the day off with like 20 holes drilled in like a rectangle pattern, like 15 feet apart, 20 feet apart in like lines. and I can run up and down them with a flasher, or, don't really need electronics. If you have your phone with Navionics or something on it, you can find it, roughly estimate your depth and just move. Because generally speaking, if there's panfish around, you're going to get bites. It's a great way to learn to ice fish. That's where I try to take a lot of my intro groups out. They've never done it. Let's go perch fishing. It's fun. Crappie, on the other hand, they tend to be really often isolated to one spot. They might not move around as much. So there's structure, or a deep mud basin where there's bloodworms in the bottom, or maybe a bait fish, some sort of structure, something to hold them there. And I've seen that with electronics, no matter what you're using, whether it's 2D or live scope, you can see how densely packed crappie can be. Meanwhile, perch, they just love to roam, it seems, in my opinion, at least. That's what I see. You can call perch in, all of a sudden it's dead. There's nobody around for 30 minutes, and then it's wham, 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 wham. Everyone's getting them again. Maybe a pike rolled by, I don't know. But as often the case, you all of a sudden start looking to get bit off, but especially on couching. But yeah. Anyways, you mentioned rods. Those are my two that I would go with. Something a little stiffer backbone, get a good hard hook set on a bigger perch. Because keep in mind, a lot of our lakes like Simcoe, 14-inch perch are pretty common. That's an eater walleye, right? It's a way to look at it. So don't feel like you always got to go 2-pound test in super ultralight.
Mm-hmm. And what if you start going for some larger species? Let's say walleye. Everyone loves eating walleye. I do too.
Absolutely, yeah.
Would you go prepared as well with so walleye? Would you also use a walleye rod, let's say, and go for pike with it, or would you bring a rod specifically for pike on the walleye trips in case one comes by, or if you want to multi-species?
Right. So personally, I fish most of my pike on tip-ups or dead stick. I don't really have a jigging rod too much for them. I find it much more success with dead bait or live sucker, whether it's on an iFish Pro or it's on a true traditional tip-up. Either or, that's how I prefer to do it. And I think you will get better results. Pike seem to be super lethargic in the winter. There's times they're super aggressive and they're biting you off, but most of the time they can't turn down a well-presented Cisco strip, or they love hot dogs. Not even kidding. Last year I played a few days with pike trips and ran live suckers, Ciscos, and then hot dogs. And hot dogs kind of held their own, which is really weird. That might be an interesting fishing fact for a future podcast. Yeah, they seem to be really scent oriented. They just want to come and look at it for a long time. I've watched them with the glory, the ability to use live scope out on the ice. I can sit in my shack and jig for walleye and actually check my tip up just from inside my shack and see if anything's looking at it. And you can see pike because you can identify them on the scope. It's a long fish, and you can actually see them sitting there staring at it for a long time. 5 minutes is not uncommon. They're just sitting there staring at a dead piece of meat. They're very lazy. You wouldn't know that once you hook them. They love to run, but when they're coming in that cold water feeding mode, it's probably similar to what you've seen early spring pike fishing. You guys witnessed that with me. Sometimes they just are so neutral, you just can't get them to go. They'll come up and look at it. I remember a big one that Jesse had follow right to the boat a couple times, and that thing was huge, and it just kept right on it, 4 or 5 casts in a row.
You're breaking his heart, Matt. You can't bring that up again. It's a sore subject.
I like to remember it's not my fault. Yeah, that's the thing. But yeah, you mentioned walleye. Walleye rods, I usually use them interchangeably whitefish tackle, so that's kind of fun. Okay. You can buy a medium action, something that's like this one here, this 34-inch medium. These are all right now Shimano Sedonas, by the way. They're nice, good price point. They have a wicked rod and reel combo, solid. They got tiny little grips on them, which is super convenient for when you're doing the rod tip, the pencil grip. There you go. So it's kind of nice. So a medium is pretty good because they're still really soft in the tip. And it should mention it depends on the size of your walleye. So I like something that's got a bit of give in the tip, because with walleye, they love to come up and they love to chase. Once you mark one, you got to kind of pull it away from them a little bit. There are times they will take a rattle bait, just pin it to the mud, really aggressively. But a lot of time with the classic, jig and minnow or tungsten teardrop in a minnow or soft plastic, you're going to be pulling it away from them really slow, a slowest wind you can do. And you'll watch them go vertical on it. They'll come right up underneath it. All of a sudden, if you're using traditional flasher, you'll even just see your line get a lot thicker all of a sudden. You're like, holy crap, it's giant. Well, it could be an 18-inch fish and just went vertical. And then the hit will be often very light. So I want something with a soft tip. So when the rod is sitting there statically, the rod is slightly bent. So when a fish hits, it either pulls it down or it releases tension. And you can kind of from that bottom up, you can see that rod tip jump. And that's also a huge tip for whitefish.
You see movement either way.
When you're using things exactly, those bad boys pounding the mud or Meigs, they will suck them up and the rod tip will straighten out. That's a good way to tell you got to strike. But you want something that's got good backbone. So a medium action rod is going to be pretty solid. I'd probably be running that with for walleye, somewhere like 8 to 10 pound braid. Braid is almost always my go-to in a shack. If it's cold and I'm worried about line freeze, I'm probably in a shack. If it's like -2, I'm running around, no problem. Not worried about line freezing up, but braid will really help out. Usually like 8 to 10 pound braid for walleye kind of setup is where I'm at. But there are times, I mentioned, where they're taking bigger baits, and it might not be a bad idea to carry, tangled up here, sorry, something even heavier. So this is a 40-inch medium heavy Shimano Convergence. This is a sick rod. They're like wicked. They're like $60 rods. They're unbelievable, and it's a lot stiffer. So if you're ripping like rattle baits, I love the ripping wraps. These things are awesome. Perch pattern or whatever, great. Or even like jigging wraps. They're always a classic for walleye. These are going to weigh a bit. So if you're using that little medium action, that rod tip's just going to be undergunned. It's going to be like flipping and pitching with a medium action spinning rod. Like it's just not going to be as effective on those hook sets. And I usually bump up my test to like 15 pound or something like that, where I can actually, bigger fish, bigger bait, ideally. They got a hard mouth. So if you have a soft rod, I've seen this so many times with lake trout specifically, but walleye as well. You get a big fish to eat something smaller and you're on a light rod and you go to set and the rod just folds like a noodle and there's no hook set power. Or your drag is set so loose, you just hear the drag scream right when you set the hook. You didn't hook the fish. It just comes right off. Sometimes you need to have a little bit tighter drag and a rod that can handle those hook sets.
Absolutely. And I have to say, I have a few of those Sedona rods and they're fantastic for the money.
Yeah, they're unreal. Yeah, unreal. The combo's like wicked. The reel is solid. It's like a little 50 size reel. It's an awesome like little brook trout reel or panfish reel for the spring. Like it killed 2 birds right there. It's awesome.
Absolutely. I'll put the link below in the bio to that rod and combo setup. It's a great combo and it's not something that's going to break the bank. I know like we'll go to the tackle store and like ice rods range from, $10 to $300, but that Sedona is a good price point. I think they're like $50.
Yeah, something like that. And the combo is like 100 and something with the reel. Like, and it's a solid like aluminum machined reel. Like they're wicked. And they're just that price point where the quality gear that I can put in someone's hand. I've got a dozen of these setups now, but I don't feel like I'm giving them something that like is too expensive that if they break it, they feel bad. Or they're going to be like, if they want to replace it, they don't have to replace a $200 ice rod. And personally, I don't even have ice rods that are that expensive for my own personal fishing. So do with that as you wish. I think there's some great value rods out there still.
And so when beefing up again in size, let's say we're going for bass. I'm just kidding. Let's say we're going for some trout.
You're in Quebec all of a sudden. Yeah.
So like Lakers is, I'd say, probably the most popular, but there are you can get rainbows and stuff. But let's primarily talk about lake trout then.
So lake trout, I already touched about one of my favorite rods for them, the 40-inch medium heavy. I should also mention what I do differently with them is I'll run a 2500 size reel on them, which is like a pretty decent sized bass reel. The reason for that, Lakers love to chase, and sometimes you can't reel fast enough with a 1000 size reel. So this is a lot more comfortable, more line pickup per handle turn. And, let's be real, I have a bunch of these things kicking around from the open water season, so I might as well I don't need 15 1000 size reels for spring perch, but I do have those for this. And I find that larger diameter spool makes a huge difference on the ability to reel fast away from a Laker. So that's important. Yeah, medium heavy is where I'd kind of start, depending on, for Lakers especially. If you're messing around with like pond trout, like brookies and stuff, you can use your perch gear, your walleye gear, like that kind of stuff. Or even like rainbows. I got to be careful, but you can't buy this rod, but I do a lot of steelheading through the ice, or have done in the past. I built this rod out of an old rod blank that I broke, and I like took the cork and put it in a lathe, and the lathe involved a drill, and I just clamped an old broken section into the drill chuck and sanded it down. But it's like almost 50 inch. I think it's like 47 inches, but it's like super parabolic, so it's like very flexy all the way to the handle. So steelhead, they love to rip, but they love to like roll and thrash and do all this crazy stuff. Lakers have these like big slow head shakes generally. Steelhead are like unpredictable. So having something that's like a much softer rod will serve you huge benefit to landing these fish. And generally speaking, I run a lot of dead sticks for rainbows. So it's like a row bag with floaters in it, or like a shiner like you would use for perch with a single split shot above it, and they'll be set up in like jaw jackers, or even like iFish Pros. Sometimes they hit them and run. The jaw jacker is a really cool piece of gear, but it doesn't work for every species. There's species like pike and lake trout that I don't really enjoy it for, because they love to take it and then move with the bait, and then they're going to like munch on it a little bit and move some more, and then they'll like actually get it to the point where the hook is in the mouth. But steelhead are one where like you can't be fast enough with the hook set. They take that row bag or that little minnow, and it's like you have to be setting right away or they spit it. So Those are pretty cool. Just make sure your drag's set relatively loose, because I've seen lots of videos of people having jaw jackers skid across the ice and go down the hole. So watch out for those. But yeah, Lakers, I mean, that's one of my favorite fish to target on the ice. I'll be honest. They're very, like, kind of in their peak performance that time of year. That is where they are at their prime. They are patrolling everywhere in the lake all of a sudden. In the summer, they're only found in those deeper depths where there's cold water, oxygen, in our southern lakes anyways. You're not going to find them shallower than, let's say, 60, 70 feet usually. That'd be even pushing it in some lakes. But meanwhile, you can find a hump that tops out in 20 feet of water, and they could be right up on the top in the evening, right? Or they could be like down on the edges. They could be anywhere. Lakers are cool, just like most trout. They don't stop swimming. So they're one fish that I just kind of just sit still and wait. I get on a good spot where I've had success, and I kind of like sit there. Unlike perch, where I'm like jumping around, walleye, I'm jumping around where they hold on structure. You will see, like if you fish with me or anyone else that has any sort of live imaging sonar, forward-facing sonar, they're constantly on the move. They just don't stop. Luckily, where I guide Lakers, we will mark on a slow day, you'll mark 40, 50 fish. Like, it's pretty crazy. So they're constantly coming through. You want to have a rod and reel set up that, and I mentioned the bigger reel because they like to chase. When you're using things like swim baits, like I have a variety of baits I like using, but like swim baits, paddle tails are a great option. I'll dive more into paddle tails or baits more later, but you want something that has some action on the retrieve. And if you don't, like say you're using a bucktail, which I love bucktails for lake trout. They don't see them as often. Like I tie my own on jig heads. You have to impart action while you're retrieving it away. So think of your drop as your cast, as it would be on the open water, and you're pulling it away. So you're literally retrieving your bait when you mark one to pull it past the lake trout. As they accelerate on it, you're going faster and faster and faster and imparting action with the rod tip to get them to strike. It's a perfect ice fishing fish. Like, it's actually so exciting. You're not just waiting for a little tip to drop on a walleye or a perch. Like, you earned that fish. You caught that fish, which is pretty cool. So you need to have a rod that's stiff enough that can set the hook, because they got a really hard mouth, a drag that's strong enough or a line that's strong enough that can handle the heavier drag to actually puncture their mouth. Like, I'm usually using 20 pound, 15 to 20 pound at a minimum. There's lakes where we target big fish, and you might want to be starting at 20 pound as your minimum. And often I'll be running 15 pound fluorocarbon leader. So I can sweep into that fish with a 40-inch rod, get a solid hook set on that thing. And they will still often shake their head a couple times and then just beeline it for bottom. They will take all of that rich, you may have found them in 100 feet of water, you caught them 20 feet below the ice, and their first run is 80 feet back to the bottom. It's awesome. But only if you get a good hook set, and you need a stiffer rod for that. I see too many people fishing light gear for Lakers, and I've been guilty of that, thinking, oh, it'll be more fun to fight them. You just miss every fish.
It would be like musky fishing with a bass rod. It's like, you might get them to eat your bait, but you probably won't be able to get the hooks actually into their mouth, the big thick hooks.
Like if I look at like the hook gape or hook wire gauge on like a buckshot, for instance, where you catch on perch, or you can see that, but perch or walleye, pretty thin. You could use that for Lakers, but like, is a Laker going to take that little thing? Yeah, it could. But things I target lake trout with, like a big pre-rig tube, that hook gauge is like ridiculously thick. Like, that's 2 to 3 times thicker. So you got to have that extra punch in the rod to actually hook that fish. So don't be shy with lake trout gear. It might seem like a bit of a stiff rod, but as long as it's got some tip flex to absorb some of those head shakes, it just needs good, strong backbone, and go longer than you think you need for ice rods. I think everybody's trending that way. All the brands, it's hard to find rods that are 18 inches anymore. Like when I was growing up, there was perch rods that were teeny tiny, but then your hook set was like from the floor to the roof of your shack just to like set the hook every time. Like now you can actually just do a nice short hook set and get your fish. Shacks have also changed. They're huge now. Like, I'm fishing, mine is like a 6-person pop-up that I guide in. And like, I usually fish 2 people in it. So there's like lots of room to like swing up and have a longer rod. And it really makes a huge difference.
Absolutely.
Just don't bring your 7-foot medium action rod on the ice. I mean, I guess you could.
Well, if you're outside of
it, might be a little overkill. Yeah, exactly.
It's true though. Like, I remember when me and Andrew were ice fishing like 20 years ago, we had those little like St. Croix 18-inch ultralights. Remember those, Andrew? They're little rods. They may have been shorter than that, actually. They were
I still have mine, and I still like mine for my little perch rod. That's all I use it for.
Yeah,
it's just a little tiny perch, but I love it.
It's true though. Like, we started buying some longer rods in the high 30 to 40-inch range, and it's a big difference. But again, it depends where you're fishing, because like, we've been in huts where you can't use longer rods, but other huts, like some of the like flip overs and stuff, you have a lot of space in front of you. You can get away with it. Yeah. So make sure to keep that, absolutely, in the back of your mind when you're deciding to buy a new rod, is if you can actually use it where you're going to be fishing.
Definitely.
But yeah, so I thought now we could talk a little bit about something that we, like Matt said that he just got a machine for the first time this season. But that's something that me and Andrew, for all the years that we've gone ice fishing, we've never had a machine. There's been a few times when some nice guy decided to pull us out. That's great, but that's not always the case. Usually we just walk out.
There's a lot of serious ice anglers out there. A lot of guys I know that don't. Like they're such fish bums. Like it's like they literally don't work much because they just love fishing so much and they're so good at it. And I know guys that'll walk like easy, like on Simcoe. Like I don't want to hotspot any specific spots, but they might walk out 2-3K like to go Laker fish. Like it is definitely possible. You know, they might start at 5 a.m. and tow a light sled, and they're just gonna walk. You know, every K takes 20 minutes or so, and they just hoof it.
We've been there. We walked up to 15K in one day, Jesse and I. Like
that's insane. I've never done that much. Well, I've walked, like I said, from my parents' house down to the lake. That was probably close to it, but I've never walked out on the lake that far. But yeah, I mean, like walking is like definitely still a great option. That's part of the great thing about ice fishing. Like you don't need anything. You don't need a boat. You don't need a sled. You need an auger or you can go in the spring, like before ice, go look for open holes. Like there's lots of options out there. Especially at Simcoe, it'll be Swiss cheese in March.
That's where the spud bar still comes in handy.
Right, exactly. So it's kind of nice. Like it opens up the lake to people that might not have the ability to get out to the different shoals and stuff in the summer, right? So yeah, put on a good pair of boots, something like I see a lot of like people that don't think about their footwear as much when they're walking. Like they just grab their old rubber boots and away they go. And it's really bad for blisters and stuff like that. So like I've got nothing fancy for my rubber boots. I have just like the Baffin rubber boots, but I've taken old liners from like a nice pair of like winter boots because you know winter boots are decent, but they're only waterproof so much. And those Baffins are like waterproof to my knees. And I've taken that old liner and put it inside those other ones. And it's like, it actually fits firmly and there's like no slipping in the heel. If you have to walk a kilometer plus, you don't want to be uncomfortable. Throw in a pair of cleats. There's a lot of good options out there. My favorite, I believe they're called like Micro Spikes is the brand. They're like red silicone straps with like really good 1/2 inch long spikes on the bottom. Those things are wicked. Like it's the worst when you're pulling a sled into a headwind and you're taking literally 2 steps backwards or every step forward. Like it's no fun. So that is a good thing. And then don't overdress for on the way out. Like wear your float suit, right? But carry your layers in your sled and like put them on when you get to where you're going to fish. That's a huge tip. If you're going to walk 2K, you're going to take an hour or whatever to get out there and maybe it's snow to foot. Like it's a lot of work. You're going to overheat and you're going to get cold fast. So yeah, walking is fine. Like I said, this is the first year I'll be operating with a sled on the ice since I can remember. And is it going to open up options? For sure. It's going to give me opportunities to get away from the crowds. We don't really have too many crowds here, but and just maybe more exploration, open up more pike spots. I find they're kind of tricky sometimes to get to. You know, there are all these little spawning bays out in the middle of nowhere. But yeah, lots of good walkout options.
Yeah, for sure. So when it comes to, say someone's never gone ice fishing before and they're looking for somewhere to access, where would you recommend, not specific spots, but like what are you going to tell someone to look for if they're looking to walk out and go ice fishing?
Sure. First thing I always tell people without giving away spots is to make sure, or like just do some research, find out what fish are in the lake, what you're looking for. I'd highly recommend panfish, highly recommend perch. Crappie are great, but they can be fickle as can be. They can be so hard to locate sometimes. But perch, you can usually find them. Start somewhere, within a short drive. You don't want to be your first few trips. You don't want to be driving 3 hours if you don't like it. So, keep that Simcoe, Couchiching, those kind of lakes in mind. I'm not blowing up spots by any means by saying those lakes, they're pretty popular.
Oh no, you mean the ice fishing capital of the world.
Exactly, right? Exactly. So I'm sorry for you guys that, blew up your hotspot. Look for like public boat launches where they allow public parking. That's a big thing. Go scouting like early before the ice. Go for a drive. Go in the fall, see what the options are. Some of them will have like no parking signs between January 1st and March 15th. Like it'll literally say like no ice, no parking, right? And that's pretty common. Like go for a drive around Oro-Medonte or Innisfil and look at all the street signs out there that don't allow parking within 2 kilometers of the lake. It's frustrating. Get to know a local. There's plenty of places that you look that'll like allow you to like park on their property, knock on doors. I've got a lot of access on rivers just from knocking on farmers' doors and like, hey, can I fish your river? Absolutely. Thanks for asking. Like it goes a long way. Leave letters in mailboxes. I think there's even places like in Keswick and stuff. I saw people like local guys offering parking on their property, like, $15, $20.
They'll have like a cardboard sign on their front lawn.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, but like there's options there. Don't be the guys to go park on the ice just to save the $20. Like that's gonna really hurt you. But a good way to find fish is look where others are fishing, especially for panfish. Like hit up Keswick, hit up Guilford, hit up that area. Southern Cooks Bay, Lake Simcoe, great option. A good way to perch because they school is generally look where there's groups of people. Don't go right like 10 feet from someone. Try to give them some respect. I always tell people give them double the distance that you would like. That's kind of a good way to keep people on your side. So, I'm trying to stay a couple 100 feet away from people at any time. You don't want to be drilling holes when they're on top of a school of fish. That's frustrating. And you always see people online fighting over it in the winter. So try to keep your nose clean and stay out of other people's business. Look for boat launches. You should download a Navionics app or by Garmin, and you can actually find like drop offs and humps and saddles and stuff that are within a walking distance.
That app is useful all year round.
Absolutely, and it's for the price, like the $60 a year or whatever. It is so useful. It's awesome. Highly suggest it. And you're going to be able to like drop waypoints from where you caught fish before, and you can start to develop a pattern, which is really good. I'd recommend like focusing on like one kind of body of water for your first year, like kind of learning that area instead of like diversifying too much and trying too many species and like all that kind of stuff. It gets really convoluted if you fished 10 times and fished 10 different spots. You don't really learn anything. So it's something you should think about. With perch though, try to find, if you have electronics, or if you don't, you can find weed lines by using a heavy like spoon and banging it in the bottom and seeing if you pull up weeds. That's a good way. And like try to find the edge if you can, like transitions, weed to sand is a huge thing for them. The great thing about Lake Simcoe though is super clear. So like if you're fishing 20 feet of water, just lay down on the ice, cover your head and look down the hole. You'll see what you're looking at. You'll see the bottom, you'll see the fish, you'll see your lure working. So don't forget, like you have the eye scope. You all have eye scope. You can look down and figure it out.
Eye scope sounds expensive.
Yeah.
When did Apple come out with that?
Glasses, but just don't lose your glasses down the hole. I've done that a couple times as a kid. But yeah, like lay down the hole, see what's up, and yeah, I'm sure with starting in that way, find decent parking. Find somewhere that you're comfortable walking. Like if you are comfortable walking, towing a sled 2 kilometers, try to keep it to a K. Like don't exert yourself too much. Like it can be a lot because don't forget you gotta walk back. You gotta walk back too, right? Like it's not
when the wind's blowing against you, then too.
Exactly. And when you're cold and you're achy and like you just spend 8 hours sitting out in the weather, like I'm assuming you're a beginner. You don't have a hut. You don't have a heater, like any of that stuff. Like you're probably gonna feel pretty beat up. And remember, it's supposed to be fun. So, like, although there is fun in pain, I guess, in the grind. But like,
once it's over, you can look back and find humor in it, but never in the moment.
Yeah. No.
I was just going to say, I think my biggest tip for walking out is don't think that walking farther out necessarily means that you're in a better spot.
No,
we've walked out so far sometimes, and then other times we've walked out a quarter the distance and did good. And other guys would be out super far, and then we're like, oh, maybe it's good out there. Those guys are out there. And then on the way back, they're like, yeah, we didn't catch anything. So think more about finding fish
as an
not
example.
necessarily walking far.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like the classic boat launch thing, right? No one fishes the boat launch. You all drive away. And when you're shore fishing, you cast out from the shore. And when you're boat fishing, you cast towards the shore.
Just as perspective, there was a time Jesse and I, because I used to live right on the shore of Lake Simcoe in Beaverton. And there's a time where Jesse and I, we went out there dragging the sleds, and we walked from Beaverton to Georgina Island.
You're crazy. Georgina, yeah, you're crazy.
Sorry, not Georgina. It was Thora, because it's a closer one. Georgina's further right. Yeah. So Thora Island, still, that's like 4.5 kilometers one way.
At least.
And then we started walking along the island, fishing the huts out there. And then we had to walk. That was the day we walked about 15 kilometers. To do that. And again, did we catch him that day? I don't think so.
Did you wave down a Bombardier for a ride back at the end of the day?
Not that day.
I think we were like 17 years old and dumb as poop back then.
A couple times having to chase like the minnow bucket lid, styrofoam lid across the ice, just blowing.
Yeah. Absolutely. The classic dash. Yeah, anchor your huts.
Yes, you can't catch something on the ice. You hope that there's a snowmobile that sees you running for it a kilometer away and he'll grab it for you, maybe.
It's gone. Once it starts rolling, it's gone.
So let's talk then about general advice. What's some advice that you would give people, like or let's say like top 5 tips that you would say for people to be more successful, but also enjoy ice fishing more?
Pack some good food, lots of snacks. That's a
That
big
is a good
one.
one.
I find myself like in the summer, like not really eating much in the boat because you're ripping around, you're casting, you're busy. But like there's a lot of quiet time often in the hut. So like, pack some good snacks and keep it easy. Hot dogs on a buddy heater are awesome, classic staple. Works great. And they also double as pike bait, so it's.
I'm gonna try that this year.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm not kidding. It's deadly. It's fun. Red Hots, yeah, just the cheapest hot dogs you can get. Oh man, I should have probably prepared more for this. So in general, so we talked safety already. That goes without saying. It's like think comfort, right? Like if you know you like fishing and you're really gonna get into it, you can get a pop-up hut for pretty cheap. There's a lot of brands out there, like name brands, like Eskimo and Freybill and all that kind of stuff that sell really great huts for maybe like a good bang for your buck. But like there's lots of cheaper options.
Costco has an ice hut right now. That's a 4-man ice hut for like $250. I'm like, that's not bad.
Complain, right? Honestly, you might want. The only thing I found with those cheaper huts is upgrade the ice screws because they usually come with like crappy screws and they bend like crazy, or they never go into the ice. That's a frustrating experience.
Actually, there's a little tip on that too, because I did that for mine as well. But Amazon can get some pretty decent kits for ice screws, but they have like little chucks and stuff like that. And again, don't go with the cheapest options there.
Yeah.
But you bring a little drill with you, and it just speeds up your setup time tremendously.
Absolutely. Well, then that's another point. Like if you have a hand auger, you just get the drill chuck attachment, right? And then you have that to rip through the ice. You probably already have a cordless drill at home.
Yeah.
As long as it's brushless, I don't care if you're a Milwaukee or DeWalt guy, they both will work. Yeah. Maybe not in Makita, but
Jesse only uses Ryobi.
Yeah, exactly. Smoke. It just starts your fire for you too.
Heat source.
But yeah, exactly. No need to have a heater now. But like you're gonna need some sort of tool to get through the ice, and like spud bars are kind of okay in early ice, but like buy an auger. Don't feel like you have to go out and buy a $600 or $700 40-volt lithium. They're awesome. Don't get me wrong; they work great. But if you have a cordless drill at home, buy a couple spare batteries for it because you're gonna need them, and then buy a drill chuck attachment for your drill, and you can rip through the ice. I've used one. I used one for years. Like you're punching 20 inches of ice in almost no time still. The only thing is those batteries don't like the cold, so keep them stuffed inside your jacket when you're not in use. And buy a bigger battery. Buy like a 5 amp hour or something like that. Don't use the classic 1.5s that come with them. They last for like half a hole and then they're done. But yeah, that's good. So you'd have some sort of comfort, some snacks, some way to get through the ice. Like a nice cheap alternative is like a drill chuck attachment. Don't be afraid to move though. Like that's a big thing. I find a lot of people just drill 2 holes and sit there all day. Like, oh, I didn't catch anything. And if you go out just to get away from life and just go to zone out, like that's great. Put some music on and just chill. Awesome. But if you're actually out there to catch fish, like have keep weight. If you're walking, keep weight in mind so you can still move around. I mentioned with perch, like it's not uncommon to fish 20 to 30 holes in a day a lot of the time. Sometimes you get lucky and your first hole is on a school of fish and they stay around all day. But be prepared to move, and that usually comes down to the weight in your sled. And speaking of the weight in the sled, here's an easy, good tip everybody should be aware of. If you're walking, build yourself or buy a Smitty sled. It will make life so much easier walking out. Like you will take your standard jet sled that's 25 inches wide, that is plowing through the snow, and after like a couple hundred meters you're gassed. You can build, if you don't know what a Smitty sled is, look them up. They're basically old downhill or cross country skis built on a frame attached to it, so it lifts everything up off the snow, and then you're really only running on like 4 inches of ski. Like it is so much smoother. It almost feels like there's nothing there.
I have the skis, but I haven't built my frame yet for it. I need to get on that. But I have the skis and I have my jet sled.
Hurry up, Andrew.
It's the best. Even if you just bolt some straight through lag bolts, carriage bolts, with like a 2x6 on edge on each ski, and then just friggin' bolt your sled to the top of that. Like it doesn't need to be fancy. Mine's built out of like angle iron and wood. Like it's classic. It works great. And attach your rope to the tips of the skis, not the sled. So it keeps the skis up out of the snow, which is big. So some sort of transportation, some way to drill a hole, some comfort, something for what we talked about, warmth, and with the drill melting and attaching your ice screws. Yeah, I think that covers most of it. Just move around. Oh, and move around. Yeah.
Do you have any tips that you would share, Jesse?
I would say the snack thing is a big deal because, like you said, like usually when we're perch fishing, sometimes there's those times of days when the bite's on, and then there's oftentimes times where it's like a lull. It might be 40 minutes and nothing's coming by, or a pike scared off the perch, and you're just sitting there waiting, and you don't want to move because it's cold. It is nice to have a nice snack or a nice meal, especially a hot meal. If you have a buddy heater, oh, it's so good.
Yeah, because minnows taste like crap, so don't eat them as a
Yeah.
snack.
Even
So.
if you cook them on the buddy.
Maybe salted minnows would be okay.
Even if you put that yum sauce on it after, it's still like, no, it's not the same. I would say if I had to give an extra tip myself, I would say my biggest thing that I suffered with for a long time is really cold feet in the ice. Because especially even in a hut, your feet are still on the ice, having an insulating factor. So I finally have like expedition level, like Arctic expedition boots that are rated for like a minus 140 Fahrenheit or something ridiculous. But it is so much nicer. The other thing that I struggled with footwear was I have fairly large feet, but as soon as you go to like a big insulated boot, it's the equivalent of like a size 16 shoe, right? And I would lose my crampons every single time I went out. At least one of them would fall off halfway through and I wouldn't notice. I'm like, oh, I'm going to start slipping. But I did find the new eye grip, or not necessarily super new, but they screw into the sole of the boot itself and they have spikes on it. And I haven't lost a single one of those little bolts at the bottom of the boot. So I've done well with those. I haven't lost, half of my traction on the way. But that would be my biggest thing that I would recommend for someone who is new. Do not underestimate the value of an overkill good winter boot.
Do you know what's an even more average way of keeping your feet warm when you're fishing there? Is bring a piece of closed cell foam, like workout mat, puzzle piece mat. Bring one of those out and just put it under your feet while you're fishing. Like, it's crazy how much that makes a difference. You're sitting in your hut with your feet on that, somewhere dry and somewhere warm to kneel on when you're landing a fish. Like, I forgot to add, I always have like 4 or 5 pieces of those. I don't build the whole floor. Like, I'm not ice camping, but like just to have in front of the chair that you're sitting on makes a world of difference.
All right, so we've talked about all things ice fishing, and I hope that you guys and girls that are looking to get into ice fishing for the first time this year have an absolutely great season. Make sure that you're safe. Follow the tips that Matt Martin has told us today. And maybe you don't have as much confidence to go by yourself. So maybe you'd want to book a trip with Matt. So Matt, how does that work if someone wants to go ice fishing with you and learn directly on the ice?
Awesome. So basically, you get in touch with me, whether it's through my website, which is smoothriver.ca. Instagram is a great way to get a hold of me, Smooth River Guiding on Instagram. Send me a message, book a day on your own. I have an awesome self-serve booking platform. You can see my availabilities. You don't have to email me for what days I have left. There's none of this back and forth. You can just secure your day and tell me kind of what your level is, like what you're looking to do. Are you looking to learn? Are you looking to target a new species? All that kind of stuff. I can supply absolutely everything when it comes to the fishing. So that's rods, reels, huts, augers, electronics. I have 3 portable huts. So I have 4 sets of electronics. So we can outfit like groups of like 6 to 8 people, maybe, to be pushing it with education. But like, if everyone knew what they were doing already, you can kind of like bump around, which is kind of nice. I just want to learn something new. But my guiding is not like a hut rental. It's not like, you go and pay $300 for a hut rental for a day. It's you're paying my rate, and I'm going to be on your shoulder all day talking you through every fish. So when you see a laker come through, we're going to talk you through each one and what you maybe did right or what you did wrong, and how to get the next fish to strike. So it's more of an education than just a rental. All you need to bring out there is your own weather appropriate clothing, food, and any drinks, fishing license, that kind of stuff that you would need. But everything else is supplied. We'd, meet up upon agreed upon location where it's going to stack the odds in our favor, whether it's walking out or utilizing my snowmobile to pull stuff out a little further. And away we go. We just have a ton of fun. And we just, talk fishing all day, tell stories, have a few laughs, catch a couple fish, and safety's priority. So if I at all don't feel like things are good, if I feel like whether it's conditions or what I've been seeing recently, I've had a few days I've called off early because people I've taken out don't seem that safe to me. I've called days early because there's been some scenarios that I'm like, look, this isn't worth my health. We got to go. You kind of get warnings, but I'm starting to be a little more strict with safety in that aspect. Like, if I don't trust you in my boat, we got to go. But same thing on the ice. Like, if you're not listening and you're like out there just running around, ripping around and like aren't sure of thickness, like, day's over. So I don't want to be as strict about it, but kind of have to be.
How many times can you jump over the pressure crack in a minute?
Yeah.
Not a fun
absolutely.
game.
No, not really. No. I mean, yeah. Maybe in the spring when it's like 10 degrees out on the ice.
As me and Andrew have fished with you, Matt, and we will say that it was a fantastic day. We did learn a lot. It's for someone like me and Andrew, I'd say that we do fish a lot for average guys that have 9 to 5s. But when you fish with someone who fishes all the time like a guide, you pick up on so much when you're fishing with them. And it's literally a learning experience fishing with a guide. Mm-hmm. You'll learn a lot, especially if you're just getting into fishing, or maybe you want to catch a species that you've never caught before, like a lake trout. going with Matt, I guarantee you're going to learn as much as you could probably do in 3 or 4 years by yourself in one day. Guarantee.
Yeah, I would agree. I'd agree. That's one thing I can't control is I can't control what the fish do. I can't, you're the one with the rod in your hands. I'm not going to be fishing and setting hook for you. It's not the goal. But what I can do is provide, I can guarantee a good education with a lot of lessons throughout the day. And I wish we had more time and I could really just dive into like the specifics of each species. Like there's so much. So if anyone has any questions about Lakers, what I might do differently, walleye, pike, perch, crappie, whatever it is, just send me a message. Hopefully we can connect and maybe get out on the ice. But if not, I'm still happy to provide some info to help make your first season a little bit easier.
Absolutely. And make sure you follow Matt Martin on Instagram as well. That's how I always get really, depressed when I'm at work and I look at Matt's posts that he posts during the day and they're just slamming big lake trout and perch and walleye.
Yeah.
Make sure you follow that as well. I'm going to put all of these stuff in the links below in the bio or the show notes of the podcast so you can check out Matt's website, his Instagram, all that stuff as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, so definitely. And also, if you do book a day with Matt, make sure you tell him that we sent you so he knows that you're crazy. So anyway, I'd like to thank everyone for listening to the first ever episode of the Fishing Loons podcast by Average Ontario Anglers. And we would just like to say one thing about our Patreon. Why don't you take it away, Andrew?
Absolutely. So first of all, huge appreciation to all those who are already currently signed up as patrons. It helps us out a lot in order to, again, cover costs for all the editing software and stuff like that goes into such a well-edited program that Jesse puts together. So he doesn't get enough credit for that, absolutely. But if you would like to help support, we do have our Patreon, and you can join for as little as a couple bucks. It's like buying a cup of coffee, or as well, really whatever you want. There's a custom mode on there too if you really want to be nice to us. But it's if you would like to support, everything there is greatly appreciated, and it goes to us being able to continue doing the show and also continue to have awesome guests. If you aren't already signed up as well, if you have a chance to leave a review, leave a comment, rate us, that is also a huge help as well on whatever streaming service you are using. So thank you very much for doing so.
So we're going to end this episode with what we always do. As tradition states, we have the quote of the week, and to handle that, we have Matt Martin.
I forgot all of those things.
Good.
I don't know. Set that hook.